Don't I make it look easy, baby? When I do what I do, don't I make it look easy, baby? Well, I'm fooling you. I'm fooling you. What's up, everybody? Welcome to this wonderful episode of School's Out for Summer. The faculty is one of the classic movies, and for it being in 98, I really loved the graphics. I thought it was really good. But I hope you guys are having a wonderful Sabbath. For all you Latter-day Saints out there who are listening to General Conference, I hope you guys are going to enjoy it and get the uplifting that you are looking for. For everybody who's like, we're not Latter-day Saints, why are you saying all this stuff? I'm like, well, I just hope you have a wonderful Sabbath day as well. Hope you guys are resting and enjoying this. I am just really excited to be doing this over and over again, and the song stuck in my head was for Megan Trainor, the Don't I Make It Look Easy, because I just wanted to hand out that, doing all this content, creating and all that stuff, it's really hard. And for everybody who takes their time to do it and to be able to do this to entertain people and to bring out their passions that they enjoy, well, we do it out of love. We do it out of enjoyment for ourselves, and then we just do it so that way you guys also are entertained. So I just wanted to reach that out and say thank you, everybody who's actually listening, and thank you for taking your time and enjoying all the content that I'm providing when it comes to getting these discussions of horror films and all the movies that could really frighten you, but in reality they're not, right? Because we just went through the last four movies that were not frightening at all, and not the last. Willy's Wonderland was pretty good, but the Leprechaun movie is what I'm referring to, that had no scare tactic at all. Didn't really frighten anybody. Hopefully it didn't frighten anybody. If it did, maybe you were watching it, you were too young. But even my daughter, who's 7, about to be 8, she looked at it and she's like, why is he supposed to be, like, is this supposed to be a scary movie? And I'm like, yeah. And I paused it because I don't want her to see anything scary. But she was snuck up and watching it a little bit, and she was like, this is not scary at all, Papi. And I'm like, yeah, it's not. It's not. If a 7-year-old is telling me it's not scary, it's not. And trust me, she's gotten scared from other stuff that we accidentally didn't. I didn't accidentally have her watch, but she came in and was like, "Oh my gosh!" Like when we were watching A Silent Place, and she came in almost at the beginning, where spoilers alert if you haven't seen it yet. But when the kid turns on the rocket launcher, the toy, and then he's running to get to save the boy from these creatures, and then all of a sudden, boom, he gets taken away from us. That freaked her out because she came in, like my wife and I, when we want to watch scary movies, or when I want to watch scary movies, and I try to get my wife to watch it with me, I have to do it during the day. And so we were in our room, we were just kind of watching it. My daughter was playing in her, doing all this stuff, and all of a sudden she came up to see where we were, and then she looked at the screen right when it happened, freaked her out. I didn't help any better because I was just like, see, well, that's what happens when you make a lot of noise. I didn't help out. I've been doing a lot better at parenting. It's I have such a unorthodox way to parent, but yeah. So I try not to avoid for them to watch any of those scary movies, but she snuck in, was watching that a little bit, and she was just like, this is not scary at all. I'm like, yeah, it's not. And we discussed it in the last in the 2 double features regarding Leprechaun. It wasn't scary. However, now we're getting into the parts where there are some pretty freaky things, and I just wanted to just chat a little bit before we dove into the faculty. But the reason why I sang that song, the School's Out for Summer, is because I remember when the trailers came out in this. So I was born 91, this came out 98, so I was 7 when it came out, and I remember all the trailers. And back then they only had one trailer. Okay, one trailer that just repeated over and over and over again. Wherever you watched it, so that's how the marketing works. And I feel like we should do that again. We should do that again because this whole, like, don't get me wrong, I love Marvel, I love DC, like DC's all right, but I love movies in general. But I feel like recently they're like first trailer, second trailer, last trailer, and it's like each trailer hands out more information that probably could be better suited to provide us a more exciting experience watching a movie when we go and be like, oh, dang, this all happened, right? Like, that's exactly what they gave us back in the days where it was just like, here's one thing, the concept of the movie, go watch the rest to figure it out. But no, in most of the trailers I'm seeing now, it's like we already know the whole movie by the third trailer. We already know it all. So why am I going to watch it, right? I still go watch it. Don't call me crazy, but I'm still just like, seriously, like you could just stick to one that gives a good concept to it. But anyway, the trailer that was coming out for this one had that song the whole time, which was cool because it was like, you know, students against the faculty, right? And schools out and all. It was really good. And I loved the acting was pretty good compared to like Leprechaun. If I'm ever going to compare anything, I'm sorry, it's going to be Leprechaun acting. But the acting was really good, and they had great actors to portray the kids, to even portray the faculty. And so we're going to just dive into this and start off with our theme song, and then we'll go on to discuss this. All right. So we get the setting that we're in high school. Now, for anybody who watches high school movies, it wasn't until later on in my life that I realized that the majority of the people who played high school teens and all that stuff weren't really in high school anymore. They were like early 20s, some even late 20s. Maybe they were chosen for the fact that, one, they still looked young and they could probably act, they already knew how to act their teen ways, and I think they just had the experience in high school. But anyway, we get all these, these football players, and we start looking at who are gonna be like the main characters and all this, and the majority of it ended up being on Elijah Wood's his shoulders, right? He ended up being the one who notices. He ended up being the hero out of all. But they had a lot of other people come in, Josh Hartnett being one of them that helped out and all that stuff. But the beginning, I thought it was pretty cool that the first person to obviously get caught is the coach, and and go figure, he's the bad guy in Terminator 2. So of course he's gonna be the first one to become evil because it's just so easy for him to do so, and that's where it goes. And then we get a good shot of Usher when he tried to act. I'm not sure if he did other movies, but at least he did decent enough to be in this movie. So then now we get the setting to be in Ohio. And I haven't been in Ohio. I just moved from Salt Lake City to Kansas, so I'm getting to know a lot about here. I don't know much about Ohio, so we'll see how it kind of looks. But back in the 90s, it's just a normal setting of a high school where all the extracurricular activities or all the other departments were not getting or any financing because nobody was interested in it. While the big money bringer was football, right? So they had to focus everything on football and make sure they got it all set, while everyone else kind of got gypped, which I think just is normal, but it's a reality in stuff that we need to actually focus on getting more funding for these arts and music and all this other stuff that can really stimulate the mind and really help out there. So we start seeing that it's attacking first the adults. Now, why did it only affect the adults? Like, why did it go to the adults first? I think later on, if I remember, they kind of have a discussion that they were doing adults first and then they were going to go to kids. I think it's a lot easier. I think these aliens or creatures were just kind of trying to base everything off of how the society is set, right? So we get the students who are subject to teachers and teachers who are subject to the principal. So they're kind of trying to get everything set in a way where they can take power without people questioning, which is very simple and true. If anybody, wants to take over a high school, the first thing you got to do is take out the teachers, and then the teachers will then be able to influence or take on more, as you started seeing later on. So I thought for a second. Now, I was a bit confused for a bit because they killed the principal like crazy, like stabbed her to death for no pertain reason. And then she came back later on as one of the aliens. However, I believe once we get to the end, which we'll discuss, I believe once she dies, I think they end up finding out that like she actually did die. Because I highly doubt that the body could reanimate it and stay reanimated once they kind of withered away. So anyway, so now we start getting the quarterback and the cheerleader, who is a jerk at the end. She's a jerk throughout the whole movie. And I thought it was very interesting that she's more interested in his future of being this pro star and like going on a scholarship to football, rather than actually listening to the dude. Like, I really liked how deep he got into saying like, hey, I try my hardest at school, and when I get a grade, I deserve that grade, right? Like, even if it's a low grade. But because a lot of people need to have him on the team, and they still have certain extra, they still have grade requirements that need to go in, everybody just letting him pass. So I love the fact that we were able to see him kind of, open up to not his girlfriend, because the girlfriend was a dick, but we're talking about to the goth chick, and be able to tell her like, look, I wanted, I want to be recognized more for what I can do rather than what everybody's giving me, and so I like that. That was pretty cool. And I think, I'm not sure if I've met a lot of high schoolers or high school football people who thought the same. I know a lot of people that took advantage of that privilege of being on the football team. They're like, oh, shoot, I'm on the football team. Guess what? I don't have to study. I'm always going to pass. I saw a lot of people kind of just pass with flying colors without any effort. But for those who actually did try, I feel like you could relate to the guy, right? He loved playing football, but when it comes to actually trying, he saw outside of, well, what if football is not my career? What if it's not the end? What am I going to be after that? Which I think a lot of people started realizing later on, that a lot of NFL players and a lot of these professional athletes started coming out like in bankruptcy and losing a lot of money and all this other stuff, because they weren't really backing themselves up with a different career or something that will provide them more wealth rather than just spending and spending and spending. And so I think this was just kind of an opener for anybody who was watching. And I'm sorry I'm like diving deep into this, but I really like the point that they really saw that, right? And they wrote it in, and I feel like it should have been seen a lot sooner, but a lot of people just kind of shrugged it off because it's a movie. But I thought it was really good that they portrayed it that way. And yeah, of course, they had to stick to the whole superficial, the whole status quo. I can't, I, the star cheerleader, can't be dating some guy who's just working on his what do you call it? His academics and all that stupid stuff. So anyway, all right. So I've gone and visited to the South. We're gonna switch into this. I've gone and visited to the South. They're very nice. The Southern hospitality is really true. They really are pleasant people to be around. They're very cordial, very nice. But do you think watching this movie it changed people's view? Like, maybe we just start being more suspicious of these people because all of a sudden the nice little southerner is the one who caused all the issue. And so like I don't know if during that time people were like, I'm gonna start suspecting on this, or people didn't care because she was white. Because if we talk about racial stuff, I know like you can see a movie and people are gonna be like, man, I hate this person because he's Arabic or this and that, and we're gonna start looking at them differently. And then, but with this one, they're like, yeah, no, it was just like coincidence that she was speaking in a southern term, right? I don't know. Maybe that was just me, just kind of overthinking it. But I was just like, did anybody kind of go crazy about like, anybody have that kind of southern accent? Maybe we should suspect you. So if you did, or if you know someone who did, go ahead, send me, write it up. I would love to hear about this. Again, send me the email, Gio Saavedra, so GIOSAAVEDRA 19 at gmail.com. I'll also post it in the details of this episode. And just send me just stories if you've heard of those stories, if you were growing up in those times when this movie came out. So now we get Elijah Wood, who ends up finding this little cocoon thing right by the coach. The coach is like where he was in the field, and so now he brings it in to their science teacher. Ends up finding out it's like kind of like a squid or octopi. So we're looking at like this alien is kind of similar to a sea creature. So I feel myself the way it turned out, it wasn't really alien because it could survive with normal water, like with rainwater, and just drinking loads and loads of water. But I feel like that it had to do something with some like mutation in the oh my gosh, drawing a blank, in the ocean. There we go. And it just kind of came out trying to find a different way, because she does explain later on that her community or her town or whatever started drying up, and I had a question about like, hey, if she came from Atlanta, like, did she spread it in Atlanta and then come over here to start spreading? And then she kind of like explains it later on that it was kind of drying out. But anyway, so I feel like that's just kind of the way it turned out, is that it could have been an alien that had the similarities of a squid or octopus or octopi, and just kind of came and tried to find a way to infiltrate little and then go big, right? Because you don't go big, when you want to invade, unless you really do. But other than that, that's kind of how it was. And then it bit the teacher. So then my question is like, does it attach when it binds, or does it actually have to be attached to the person? Which we later find out that it actually has to go inside the person through the ear canal. And so that's kind of how it accessed, or was, was the easiest. I think the easiest and fastest way to take control of the body was probably through the ear. And so we get this jock who's now done with hockey. And it's hockey, oh my gosh. You can tell I am not thinking straight today. Anyway, he starts, he's going to go take a shower. He's done. He's going to take a shower. And then Miss Brummel, one of the teachers, comes out naked when she's older, like very older, like close to senior age. And she just couldn't take it, right? It looks like the body wasn't just fit for these organisms. And then he like held her, and she kind of gives them like they're trying to get everybody And he's just like, what the? And then her scalp comes off, which was so gross. So gross. I was like, oh my gosh. It made me really thank myself thank or be grateful that I didn't take a shower actually in the schools, because I always thought it was kind of gross. I'm going to be honest, I wasn't really self-conscious. Well, I kind of was self-conscious. Everybody talks about how big your penis is, and I'm not gonna say mine is the biggest, and I'm not gonna say mine is the smallest. I'm just gonna say mine. I didn't want people talking, and so anyway, I never showered there. But this is kind of probably I'm grateful I didn't, because I didn't know what could have occurred. There wasn't really any stops for it, and that's just the kind of weird thing about that, is that there wasn't really any way to maneuver who can come in and out. So I didn't like that not private part of it. But anyway, this guy gets this whole other ordeal, and I thought that was just gross and sick. And also scarring. Poor guy. Even through after all this whole scenario of the aliens coming in, now he's gonna have to forget what happened in that shower. So like I said, pobrecito Ed, right? That I think that was crazy, and luckily Elijah, he wasn't alone. Elijah Wood also had to deal with the same, like, at least he wasn't touched by the old lady, but he was just like, what the heck is going on here? But yeah, all right. So before we head off, I think we're gonna take a little break, and then we will be right back, finishing off the rest of the faculty. Season 2 has already kicked off. Have you gotten your shirt? Not yet? Head to Etsy and search for Gio's Thoughts to purchase a one-of-a-kind Horror Films Thrill Me shirt. We have all sizes for both men and women. A link will be provided on this episode's details. Want to support Gio in a different way? Head to geosthoughts.com and click on Support Creator. Any contribution would be greatly appreciated. And we're back. All right. So, I want to talk about how easy was Josh Hartnett or Zeke. How easy was it him to be a drug dealer in high school? Like, was that just something out of the norm in the 90s that you knew that one kid? Like, I knew when I was in high school, it was in the early 2000s, and I know you knew who could get you something, but the fact that he was bringing it to school and selling it and not getting in trouble and not getting the cops involved and not getting reprimanded for doing that on school grounds, even in the parking lot, even though how he debated it wasn't, was very shocking to me, that he was just able to just nonchalantly do it and be like, hey, teacher, I can do what I want because the car is my property. But I'm like, yeah, but it's on the school grounds. I'm like, there were so much things, and maybe like a lot of people got away with it when it came into the 90s. That's when they started being more strict, come early 2000s, or maybe come after 9/11, right? Like a lot more stricter stuff occurred. And we can talk about all conspiracy theories of getting more control over everything, but I just feel like it was so loosely based, where he was just like really dealing in the school and there was no repercussions of it. But hey, they needed to have him deal in order for him to beat the monsters, because we end up figuring out why they're able to beat the monsters. And that was because of his special drug. Right? And not really his special drug. It just had to deal with the science part of everything. So now we get them trying to get into the Forbidden Lounge, which is the teacher's lounge. I don't know if you felt that. I felt it when I was in high school, that the one place that you could never walk in at all, and if you did, because the teacher told you, hey, can you go to the teacher's lounge, you felt like you were in unmarked territory. You didn't know what to do, and you were just like, oh my gosh, if I'm in here, I'm gonna get in trouble. Like, what are they doing here? Like, I don't know if anyone else felt that, but I felt that always. That was that one, like in Harry Potter where nobody goes into the forbidden forest. I felt like that's exactly what the teacher's lounge was. Like, you don't know what they do in there, like what's in there. And when you get in there, you're like, I gotta get out here really quick. If someone catches me, even though I have permission, someone's gonna get mad that I'm in here. And so, and I know for a fact maybe it was just a sacred place for teachers where they didn't have to deal with us kids or the kids at the time, right? But I just know it had that not dogma. What I'm thinking of, that stigma that it was like a place that like you couldn't step foot into without getting in trouble or without getting yelled at, like, get out of here, this isn't your place, right? So I always thought that had a little bit of that stigma into it, and so here I love it because they have that same feeling of like, oh, we're in here, we're trying to find something. And then that's when they find out that the coach and the other teacher are the aliens. They get Salma Hayek and end up putting it in her ear, and that's exactly how we figure out that in order to get into the host, it has to be through the ear, or at least it's the fastest way to get through the ear, right? And so what I loved about this part of the movie is when Elijah Wood goes and tells his parents like what happened, the body that they found of the teacher, of Mrs. Brummel still in the closet and all that stuff. When they arrived with the cops and told them like exactly what happened, they were totally dismissed. It was easily to trick the parents into thinking that nothing really happened. It was that simple. Like, adults are so easily manipulated, and maybe, yeah, I know I'm an adult, but I feel like my mind is so wrapped into like so many different things that I would really be questioning a lot of stuff, and maybe because my imagination just needs to figure out what really is. And so the fact that the parents were like, "Oh my gosh, it was a doll," and this and that, and like not believing the kid, like I feel like maybe we grew up in a time where maybe parents always thought that kids created so much stuff out of nowhere, and so they didn't believe them. And then now when we have all these movements coming out, like hashtag Me Too and all this other stuff, that you start thinking, oh, wait, they were telling the truth. And I feel like, I know this is a movie and it doesn't really go and coincide with what those movements are, but I'm just saying, like, what was the whole point of not believing your kid? Like, if your kid's really telling you something, thinking, and I'm not as good. And like, I'm not gonna say I'm the perfect parent. I can't abide by that. I have a lot of things that I have to that I'm changing, that I have to improve as a parent. But when it comes to like my kids telling me like, hey, this happened, or I saw this, or this and that, I try to get to the bottom of it, and I try to really be on their side to understand, okay, you saw this, this is something that's really freaking you out. Like, Elijah was really freaked out. Okay, let's figure out what it is. And even if they start pulling all this junk, it's gonna be like, well, where's Mrs. Brummel, where's that, like, there's a lot more stuff to kind of go inside, like go into context to verify that your child is, saying what they are saying, like to make sure you match everything. So I feel like they didn't really try. It was very easily manipulated. They got the cop really quick, like, hey, cop, come here, and then boom, they got him, and so that was it. Now he had to go home. He got punished, obviously, because the parents still didn't believe him, and then all of a sudden now, bam, he's gonna try to go out so he can see the girl. And then the part that like got me good was that when he looked out his window, the faculty was there, right? Like, at least the three teachers were just staring at him. And I thought, I was just like, oh, like, I don't know if anybody has ever felt that either. When you look out your window and you feel like someone's watching you, and you're like, you have to like double take, and then you realize there's nothing there, but you still think, is someone there? This basically said, yeah, there is. But I love the fact that the dad's like, what are you doing out here? And he's like, it's the faculty. And I'm like, they said the name of the movie. Look at them, clever, right? Well, we end up finding out that the thing to revive at them is the water, right? So we kind of talked about how they kind of manipulate or move around when it comes to water. So there, you see that the teacher's lounge starts getting a lot more water. And then they finally get the discussion. We finally get the discussion that these creatures, or they later on then call them like body snatchers or aliens, they first worked up the faculty, right, the adults, and then now they're going to work on the kids, which again, like I explained before, I think was kind of them trying to understand how the system is, right? If students aren't really in power, who's the one who is that can influence them? So we got to hit them first before we hit the students, and then from the students, then we can hit, we can start expanding a lot more. And we started seeing that with the football game, right? In the football game, everybody they tackled, they would start sneak something into the ear, and then all of a sudden now you were getting more people infected, and so on and so forth. So it was just like a cesspool of infection spreading, right, or body snatching per se. So, and what I like about this part is they talk about something that is actually really true. So when they talk about how the body snatchers are, or the aliens, and they start saying like, okay, these are books or movies, right, that were created, and the book ends this way, and all this and that. I love the fact that they said that. Well, how do we know that's just a movie, or that's just a book? How do we know it's real? And they're like, well, what if these movies or these actors, because they start talking about like Spielberg and all these other people, say, what if these movies had been created so when it does happen, no one believes it? And with everything that's happening right now in the world, I 100% believe that's exactly what happened. With so much movies we've seen, and I'm not gonna go on a tangent of that aliens are real and stuff like that. But when I talk about like with everything that's happening, when we look at movies of like infections spreading and military overstepping their bounds and the government being in more control than we really think and all that stuff, we've seen it in movies and we're like, man, that's crazy. And then when we start kind of trying to figure out what's going on in the world, and we realize it's kind of hitting it, people are starting to be like, no, that's not real. That's this movie. Like you're not able to believe. You're not knowing what's right and what's wrong, or what's correct and what's false, right? And I think that is exactly what they did. The agenda was perfect. It was exactly make everybody think that this created video, this created entertainment was the one thing that is false, right? Especially when I talk about these movies where I say like, hey guys, these are scary factors, but the movies aren't scary per se, because you got to think of, all these ways that they could have done the movie and how they filmed it. But so you have all these like back end stuff, and I feel like this was so perfect to add into this, and it fits perfectly into our narrative in this world. We have seen so much movies, we have seen so much film, we see so much created content, news, and everything that you can think, man, there's a huge conspiracy happening, but you can't really say that the conspiracy is true, because then it gets debunked by, well, that was this movie. How can that be real if it was this movie right here? Like, how is it real that aliens could really take over if this here? Or like the Red Dawn, how is it possible that Russia can attack the U.S. and that's not going to happen? There's not going to be high schoolers who are going to attack them, and it's like it's getting pretty close. It's getting pretty close. It's probably not going to hit close to the movies are, but I feel like it's getting very close to that. They just created this so that way you don't believe it until all of a sudden it happened, and you're like, holy cow, we were warned about this. Like, we should have taken a lot more precaution of it. But anyway, that was a huge tangent, and but that's what I loved about it, because they said how do we know it's real if these books were created? Like, we can't know that these people are really thinking about that. But I love the fact that they finally get to the point that it is like a parasite, right? So it needs a host. So it's no longer like a creature or anything like that. It's more of a parasite, like a very microscopic, or now like a huge parasitic life form that needs an actual body to take over, and the body needs to be warm and full of water, which is easily taken for humans because we are full of water. So now the cool part about it is that we figure out that the drug that he takes is a diuretic, and I didn't know what that word meant. But diuretic means that it helps rid your body of salt and sodium. Salt, which is sodium, and water. And so basically, that's the reason why when they stabbed the teacher in the eye, that's the reason why he died, because it had dried him up, right? And so now they know the solution is, in order for them to figure out who is an alien with them, they have to all take the drug, which is a lovely way of saying peer pressure, right? Right? The last, what was it, like 5 standing has to be very peer pressury, like we got to do this. But that makes it so much easier for the actual queen bee, who is in the southern girl's body, to trick everybody thinking that she actually took the drug, but she really didn't, because one, everybody else got super high on it, and if they haven't really done any drugs ever, they were really taking a good hit, and so they were so out of loop until they realized that the cheerleader chick had it, and then she broke all the equipment that needed to create it, and then she ran off, right? And so now they're at the point where it's like, okay, we gotta go to the school to kill the queen bee. They still don't know who the queen bee is, so they're thinking it's gonna be the principal, because obviously head of the school, it's got to be the one who's in charge, right? And lo and behold, they figure out that everybody's getting turned, so it's just a whole shit show, and they don't know what's gonna happen, and they have very few drugs or very few pens because of who dropped it. So now they are going to attack them, and I love this part of it, because now they have to go to get everything ready. And it's the thing that's funny is that once they get the principal to where they want her, they're hesitant into they shooting her. And then I love how Josh Hartnett just comes and just shoots her right in the head. Like, hurry up. Like, if this were real, this has got to happen. And we already know she's already dead, technically. But they don't know that, obviously. And so then she comes up, and then they, stab her with... No, not stab her. The one southern chick, the queen, throws all the drug on her, which I was like, suspicious. That's her. She's the one. That's when I realized that she was the one. And I was like, oh boy, they are in big trouble, right? And so now they have to go get the rest of the drugs in the car. And they go ahead and, try to just, Elijah Wood does the distraction while Josh Hartnett goes gets, or Zeke goes gets the drug. But I love the fact that the teacher attacks him, and he's just running around, like he's driving around like crazy. He puts on his seatbelt and smashes, right into a school bus, which explodes. Yeah, he's fine. Like, obviously, he's a little bit damaged. But I was like, wow, that seatbelt really saved his life from that explosion, right? Like, no way he would have been okay. That explosion was really huge. It would have actually hit both sides. But anyway, he was able to get out. And then now they realize that the queen bee was always a little sweet southern girl, and now they have to go against her, and obviously she becomes huge, but then she becomes small to try to get them. And then, of course, nudity had to be added. No way. The bum, the boob. Did you see it? I think maybe that was the only way to get people to watch the movies, was like, hey, guess what? There's nudity in here. And I've talked about this multiple times. Especially with the Leprechaun movies. I highly doubt anybody would actually watch those for the story, rather than let's just look at these boobs, right? And so that's exactly what it was. And, well, they were able to kind of figure out what to do. And luckily, the savior of all saviors was Elijah Wood. Yay, Frodo! Frodo Baggins, you got him. Right, and so I love the one-liner at the end when he's very smart, traps the alien or creature or parasite or whatever into the bleachers, and he's like, guaranteed to jack you up, and then like jabs it with the diuretic. And then the cool part about this is that once that queen bee dies, everybody, all the other organisms pan out, and we see that it starts like getting in his face, and you're like, oh god, that's gross. And then all of a sudden when it dies, like they come out. So I was like, yay, winner, right? And that's what turned everybody good. And then again, we get the whole him telling the story, everybody telling the story of what happened, how he saved the day, and what exactly was happening, and no one believing him. Even the FBI shrugging it off. But I felt like the FBI just wanted to shrug it off because they wanted to do further testing, right? They probably came in, grabbed the body, took it to Area 51, did their old stuff right there, probably added in water to revive it again, right? Wouldn't be surprised if they try to find a way to reanimate it and try to figure out all about it, and then 30, 40, 50 years from now it escapes, and then boom, we're murdered again, right? Right? Because the government obviously oversteps their boundaries every time and every day of our lives. Remember that now. I feel like I'm turning into one of those podcasts that's gonna be like the conspiracy theorists. Welcome to Gio's conspiracy theory. But anyway, so now you get the news reporters trying to figure out if it's real or not, and then the lovely scene of it all: the jock gets with the outcast, right, with the goth chick, and the cheerleader ends with the nerd. What up? Go nerds. Go outcasts. We get the popular people. Woo! I was in between. I probably was. I don't know what I was in high school. If any of my high school friends or acquaintances, per se, know how I was, I probably was in the middle. I wasn't cool. I was probably a jerk most of the time. I apologize for everybody who I was in high school. I don't know. I was even clouded. I didn't even know who I was. So apologize if you got the worst of me, or if you got the best of me, great. Or if you got both, I'm sorry. Maybe bipolar. I'm not sure yet. I haven't gotten diagnosed. But yeah, and that's the ending of the story. We leave it to that. Everything seems hunky dory. Everything finishes off, and we end the movie understanding that these teens go Wolverine. Sorry, no, wrong movie. But these teens end up defeating these creatures, and that's it. So I hope you guys enjoyed it. It was like I was very entertained this whole movie. I loved how they really made the atmosphere of the teachers not acting like superficially alien or superficially creature-ish. They were just more like contemplating like what they could do with that body. So I thought that was a really cool part about it. And so and I think just we've all felt that way. Like we've just felt that the faculty just had some, I don't know, some evilness sometimes, or just they had some agenda that they had to get the kids in line and all that stuff. And maybe that's just the government talking and all that stuff. I'm just saying. But anyway, again, I hope you guys enjoyed it. And next time we are going to be hitting Scream, and not the one like, but like the one where we get introduced to Ghostface, one of the national faces of horror. So I hope you guys have a wonderful week, and see you guys next time.